week now. Waiting for a mission. Getting softer. Every minute I stay in this room, I get weaker. And every minute Charlie squats in the bush, he gets stronger. Each time I looked around, the walls moved in a little tighter.
And that more or less describes how I think both Tim and I feel as we are recording this remotely. Tim, how's it going over there, all the way over there in Pasadena?
Well, it's actually, everything's fine. It's the truth. Everything's absolutely fine. Everybody here is well and healthy. I am not hating, not driving around in L.A. traffic. You know, we did the broadcast radio show Film Week this way, too, on this past Friday.
Yeah.
So all the film critics were at their homes or wherever the hell they were. I was at my home. And Larry Mantle, the host of the show, was in studio. Even the producer of the show, Matt D'Antonio, was home producing the show from home. I don't know, I guess with some really fancy computer or whatever.
Crazy.
So this is a thing that apparently can be done.
I don't think we want to do it this way for too long, but
Nah,
yeah.
It's not nearly as much fun.
Yeah. Well, anyway, of course, I'm sure everybody listening to us at this point, wherever you are in the United States or in the world, we have obviously international listeners. I'm sure you're all social distancing. That's like that's the hanging Chad of the new century, isn't it? It's a term we never would have expected ourselves to be using on such a regular basis. But yeah, I mean,
you know what's funny is had you asked me what social distancing meant, I would have thought it meant the exact opposite. Of what you want to get real close to somebody in that social distancing, right? You want to get real social. Nope, apparently I was wrong.
Yeah. So it is, but you know, we this podcast has gone through thick and thin with a lot of things. We've weathered brush fires and even, you know, a lot of people may not even realize this, but you know, there were a couple of weeks back, way back, more than a decade ago, where I was not on the show for a bit. You and Mark held the fort down after my mother passed away.
Yes,
and that's not something that I have talked about before, but you know, we've managed to get this damn show produced under unbelievably adverse conditions. The only time we ever take off is when we have a holiday.
Yeah.
We do not cancel for crises or natural disaster.
No. We only cancel when the hero needs to go to Disneyland.
That's it.
And then we cancel this damn thing. Let's get that kid to Disneyland. Man.
That's it. Well, now more than ever, frankly, we've got to be recommending stuff for people to do at home because movie theaters are all shut down. And you know, the first question I would have for you, because you and I have both been asked about this, and I don't think we've actually coordinated our answers in any degree. But what is this going to do to the business? I mean, last week is literally, we witnessed history. Last week was the first time ever since the beginning of theatrical motion pictures more than a century ago that the box office was zero.
Yeah.
That's the first time ever. That has never happened before. What is going to happen? AMC Theaters is you know, screaming and saying we're going to go bankrupt and we need some help, and everybody's saying like, yeah, you and the airlines and everybody else. But what's this going to do to the business, do you think?
Well, look, I think that the old adage will remain true: absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah.
And those of us who, you know, in the last few years, I don't know, maybe even a decade, have gotten used to watching our 67, 80, 90-inch televisions.
Yep.
And waiting for that thing. Well, perhaps think to ourselves, you know what, that room, that big screen, that big silver screen, all those people, that's a thing that I would like to experience again. I hope that it doesn't just hew toward big films. You know, what got canceled that was really big that was supposed to come out. I think that Vin Diesel film might have had an opening weekend before it had to go away. And so I hope it won't just accrue to those films. I hope that we'll start to think about cinema again, no matter what the nature of the film, as a shared experience.
I agree. And I think they're obviously already talking about how they're going to adjust Oscar qualification rules this year. I think any film that was scheduled for a theatrical release will still be eligible. I don't think it's going to be that hard to figure it out. Everybody kind of knew what was in the offing this year. And we'll see what this does to film festivals. Cannes is postponed until a later date. They just postponed the Summer Olympics to next year. But I'm not going to sit around and speculate. I'm off of social media for the most part, apart from publicizing this show, because it's like a Dunning-Kruger experiment gone completely wrong. Like I've got, several, probably close to, 600, 700, 800 friends on Facebook. And suddenly every single one of them is an epidemiologist and an economist. It's incredible. Like every single last one of them is now an expert in epidemiology and economics overnight. It's unbelievable. I've never seen such a thing.
It is fascinating.
It's ridiculous. It's just calm down, people. Seriously, just calm down. It'll get by. We'll all get past this. I'm not going to get into any armchair epidemiology. I'm just going to say, look, it's not wiping out the earth. There are literally, and it's a tragedy, but there are only like 15,000 people who are died, and most people recover, and most people don't even get the damn thing. They don't even show symptoms. So there are literally like a billion people walking around probably with it who don't even know, and that's okay. We're gonna get past it. We all get viruses every year. We just don't brand them and name them. So we'll get over it. So
and science.
Yeah,
this is the moment for science. God, I love science. Science is fantastic. Now, in my life, I have been, and I was just thinking about this the other day. It's funny how you don't sort of put these things together. You and I have both been on the planet for a minute now.
Yeah.
So in my life, I've experienced 3 impeachments. I suppose we might call those. But I got 3 of those under my belt.
Yeah.
I've been present for 2 volcanoes. I was in the Philippines when that blew. I was in Washington State when Mount St. Helen went away.
Wow.
When I was in the Air Force. Growing up in the Midwest, of course, tornadoes. Were every 20 minutes in the springtime. Right about this time of year is when the tornadoes would start. They were a regular sort of thing that we lived with. And of course, after moving here to Los Angeles, where we missed the 89 quake, but we were here for that 94. Was it 94?
I've been here for, I was 5 years old when the Sylmar quake hit. I have been here for every earthquake in Southern California's fairly recent history.
And then, of course, there are all of the wildfires of the past, where frankly, 30 years, if you want to really
through those.
Start counting 30 years worth of wildfires, right?
You've been shot at in combat. I can't even.
I've been shot at and shot in combat. So all of this is kind of funny to me. Like, really? This is an emergency?
Our very, very good friend Nadim George, who has co-hosted this show on a couple of occasions. Nadim is Egyptian, grew up all over Africa. His dad was a UN diplomat. And so he went to boarding school in Madagascar, and he's chased wildebeests in Ivory Coast and everywhere else. I mean, he's lived in like 5 or 6 different countries in Africa. So he has seen tropical diseases, and he has seen monsoons, and I was asking him, I was like, how do you feel? He's like, oh, dude, I grew up in Africa. Shut up. It's like, come on, man. It's like, you wimpy Westerners, just stop it.
Unless you've actually seen a lion attack. This is all
like
so. But hey, look, I don't want to make fun of people.
No.
Yes, engage in all of this, that, and the other thing. There's different states, all of that, but mostly me, and unless I see a lion coming out of the bush, I'm not going to get too worried.
Well, I'm not. I was down at Whole Foods this morning, hugging people and French kissing everybody, and it was a good old time. Licking the carts on the handles. I was really I was living large. So, well, let's just get into it. I'm gonna, I'll tell you something that's really good to binge. Anime. I'm going to start off with anime because I know it bores a lot of people, but who cares? There's a whole ton of anime out, and man, you could just go to town on this stuff. By the way, before I get into it, What have you been binging on? Because I've got all the DVDs here. I can't really get them over to you. You know, you can do some. I gave you a rundown, and you were able to do a little bit of research on some of the stuff. But what have you been binging? Have you been watching anything in particular?
Well, you know, I picked up because you know on Friday on the show on the live show. You're right. We were not talking about new released movies because there aren't any. So we had to prepare to talk about all the films that otherwise pushed their release to streaming. Yeah. And we also talked about some great series, or some series that I think are interesting anyway. Now, you know, I'm a big old Lost in Space fan.
Oh, you and I both.
You know, I went back and knocked off the whole second season of that again, because I'm just nuts about Lost in Space.
It's so good.
It's just fantastic. You know, Taylor Russell on the show. They completely sort of reconceived. This is not your grandfather's Lost in Space.
No.
Let's just put it like that. That makes me a grandfather. Let's not put it like that. Let's put it a different way. It's not your youthful Lost in Space. This is a sort of dramatic family drama with good solid science, a lot of good solid science in it, and Maureen is in charge of this expedition into space. She's not just, back here cooking and making cookies and stuff. Yep. And frankly, all of the young women in this series are sort of like the heart of the series. Yet you still have all of those elements, young Will Robinson and the robots. You got robots. Yeah. So, I just love the hell out of me some Lost in Space.
I do too. And you know what drops on Netflix this Friday, right after Film Week, man. I'm on Film Week this Friday, so I'm going to be doing this for Film Week. It's going to be weird, but you said it worked out, so that'll be fine. The third season, they got it done, I guess, in time. The third season of Ozark drops, and I'm going to tell you.
Oh, yes.
I'll tell you right now, that is going to be a godsend, because everybody who is cooped up and anxious and afraid is going to watch Ozark, and they are going to be so incredibly depressed afterwards that everything coronavirus will feel like a bright new day. It's just, that's what you do. It's like, if you want your feet to feel really good, wear some really tight shoes that are just incredibly painful. And then when you take them off, everything's great again. So that's what Ozark is going to do for the world. That show is so depressing that as soon as it ends, everything is great. It's going to be the best thing ever. People are going to be shocked.
Fantastic.
All right, well, I'm gonna dive into some of the anime here. We're going to start off with the Funimation stuff, including SSSS.Gridman, the complete series. This is a really interesting show. That I've never really delved into to any degree before. Beautifully animated and designed for a show that's basically kind of in the mecha vein of Ultraman and all things Transformers and whatnot. It's really innovatively designed. Gridman is kind of an Ultraman type figure, and then of course you got kaiju in this, and they're coming into the Earth, and so Gridman, who is kind of like a Transformer crossed with Ultraman, he's got to fight them all back. So it's all the best of all things Japanese genre, and it's really a fascinating show. Great characters, really well written, not overly dense in terms of the world. And man, this set is beautiful. It comes with a 150-page book and interviews, and there's like a keychain thing in here, and there are cards. I mean, for an anime nerd, this thing, SSSS.Gridman, is just incredibly cool. Then we have also got Fruits Basket, Season 1, Part 2. This is probably strictly for fans. This is kind of a teenager coming of age thing, which there's a lot of that in anime, and I didn't find it overly enthralling, but I'm sure somebody will go completely nuts for it. And it's got a whole bunch of other junk in it too. It's got like it's got collectible cards, and it's got like a little toy tiger, rabbit, and dragon, which is a thing I won't get into. It will make no sense if I try to explain it on the spur of the moment. It's one of those weird things. You ever notice in anime, like there's this weird connection between the human and the animal world?
Oh yeah, there are always these sort of daemons and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's Pokemon-esque, but not really. Anyway, and then we also got a thing called Isekai Quartet. That's the first season. This is okay. It's it's related to other shows, I guess, and it's kind of it skews super young. Like it's the bigger the heads and the bigger the eyes, the younger the audience is for it. But apparently this is some kind of a parody, and it parodies like ReZero and Overlord and all these other shows, and I didn't really understand it. So it's kind of weird. If you understand what that is, my hat goes off to you. We got Kingdom the movie. That's live action. That's cool. This is they've been doing a lot of this in anime, and this is all very kind of Japanese feudal swordplay stuff. Really, really well done. The story isn't that particularly great. It's a little bit convoluted, but boy, I'll tell you, the swordplay stuff, the action, it's right up there with what you get in Hong Kong stuff. And some of the best of Japanese movies haven't done a lot of that for the better part of the last decade plus. So this is getting back kind of into the late 90s, early 2000s, the things that they used to do. Pretty cool stuff. Then we got Radiant, Season 1, Part 2. This is a nice set. I have not overly followed Radiant, so it's a little bit. I think we may have reviewed Season 1, Part 1. It seems familiar. I feel like I've been here before and equally confused. It is based on a French comic, believe it or not a manga, but a manga. It's based on a French comic, and so you have a weird kind of Japanese interpolation of French comic sensibilities in anime. So it's like anime fusion, but it comes with it's an okay thing. It's like it's more Joseph Campbell kind of stuff. It's coming of age teens, and it's a little bit he's a kid with horns. So, it's the animal human thing again, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, but it's a little bit of the hero's journey, and it's all right. It comes with an 80-page book and a couple of keychains and art cards. I don't know what's up with the keychains and the cards. It's all very, very strange. And then we have That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, Season 1. This is Season 1, Part 2. And totally weird. It's a mythical world, and it's a little bit weird, and it has its own rules and its own creatures and the whole slime thing. It's all very, very LSD. I've got to be honest. It's just there's just way too much weirdness going on here. And apparently, when you buy this directly from Funimation.com, you can get a free stress ball. I don't know what the reasoning is behind that, but it's a thing. And then a bunch of cute girls in really frilly dresses in Love Live, School Idol Project Sunshine, the School Idol movie Over the Rainbow. That's the complete title. That is the complete title. Love Live, School Idol Project Sunshine, the School Idol movie Over the Rainbow. It's a mouthful. This is like Josie and the Pussycats, anime style. I don't, whatever. I hope they have fun on their summer vacation, these girls. Few other ones here real quickly from, let's see, Sentai. Well, this is all from Section 23, who distributes a lot of different libraries. They distribute Sentai. Released the Spyce, S-P-Y-C-E, the complete collection, 12 episodes on 2 discs. Lots of action-oriented girls kicking butt, being kind of girl superheroes to, in a mystical, magical, kind of futuristic, semi-feudal world. A lot of good action there. Don't try to make sense of it. A little bit more drama in Maria Watches Over Us. This is from Made in Japan. This is 4 seasons on 8 discs. This all takes place in a girls' academy. It's strictly, girl coming of age stuff. The rest of these are all from the Sentai line. I'll go through this real quickly. Mysteria Friends. More people with horns, Tim. I don't know what it is. Mysteria Friends is kind of Harry Potter-ish thing. It's all drama, takes place at the Mysteria Academy, where there are humans, gods, and demons who all go to school together. And otherwise, it's just pretty much straightforward school stuff, but it's fun. There's some nice animation and some cute ideas, and you got princesses having relationships with dragons and whatnot. So it's a thing. It's an anime thing. Grimm's Notes, the animation complete collection, Sente. This is also this is an interesting concept where it's a mystical world where everybody comes into the world with a predestined life that is written down in a book, which is an interesting idea. And then there's some interesting things where free will factors into this, blank pages, and so it's the idea, it sort of literalizes the metaphor so that it becomes a stronger metaphor. It's very interesting idea. So that's the thing. We got relationships, teen relationships in high school is just it's all the rage in Japan. You know what Chunibyo? We've talked about love, Chunibyo, and other delusions is. This is a reminder. Chunibyo is the idea that you live in your own fantasy world. So this is all about a girl, a guy coming out of his Chunibyo, and a girl who lives in her own Chunibyo where he's her soulmate, and it's otherwise just girls in little skirts and guys and having relationships in high school. That's kind of the same thing with the complete collection of Real Girl, which is all about this kind of nerdy boy and this really promiscuous bad girl who wind up falling in love. I guess it's every nerdy Japanese guy's fantasy. It's okay. Food Wars, the third plate. Somehow this series keeps getting, this is 24 episodes. I don't know how they keep getting 24 episodes out of what is basically the Iron Chef, elevated to the level of soap opera, but they do. It's just absolutely crazy. And then here's the one that I think everybody should take a look at, even if you don't really care for anime. Space Brothers #0. So Space Brothers is a very successful anime series. This is 4 years earlier. And it gets into the drama between these two brothers. One wants to go to the moon, the other wants to go to Mars, and then all of these family things intervene. Actually, a really, really interesting prequel movie to the series. I almost think it's better than the series. So that's it for the anime. And now we're going to get into some new movies. Tim, did you see? Did you see?
Look, the Charlie's Angels film that came out in 2019. Yep. I must be the only film critic on the planet who actually liked that movie. But I did like that movie. It's a lot of fun. I mostly liked it because of Miss Stewart, who is just an absolutely fantastic actress who throws herself at every role she's in, no matter how serious. She played Jean Seberg a little bit earlier.
Yes, she did. Elizabeth Banks directed this. First Charlie's Angels directed by a woman. Yeah, Elizabeth Banks knocked off the movie. She's in the movies too. So here we have this very interesting sort of take on Charlie's Angels. So this is I guess you might call it a sequel to the early 2000s Charlie's Angels, right? What I like about this movie is that it accounts for the entire lineage of Charlie's Angels. Including that 1970s television series of ours, right? All of these people and all of the Charlie's Angels are people who exist in the history of the dynasty of Charlie's Angels. That's a concept that I kind of dig. It's a touchstone back to that. Yep. Now, coming out of that box on that table in this Charlie's Angels is the voice of John Forsythe as Charlie. I'm watching this movie. I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. That's the same Charlie guy. He was 75, 40 years ago. There's a reason why that's the voice of John Forsythe coming out of that box. This movie accounts for little things like that. Now, after all of that, it's just this raucous, kick-ass movie where these badass chicks just go to town on every boy that they come across. Yeah. That's pretty much all that's happening in the movie. Yep. And there's a story, and it includes Patrick Stewart, who is a Bosley. Patrick Stewart is a Bosley. There are lots of Bosleys, yes, it turns out. Interesting little notions that they put together to make this movie. I had a lot of hopping, hooting fun with it. Other people sort of poked at it, but I thought it was kind of cool. And I recommend you go check it out. Wait, are there any special features on the DVD for Charlie's Angels? There sure are. There are deleted and extended scenes. There's a gag reel. And there's a music video of the song with Ariana Grande and Miley Cyrus and Lana Del Rey. And just featurettes. So, it's pretty standard stuff. There is a 4K, which they did not send to us, so we are only talking about the Blu-ray. But, yeah, there it is.
Interesting stuff.
So, I want to talk for a second about Jumanji, The Next Level.
Yeah.
You know what? I was one of those. I am right about 90% of the time when they announce a new movie. Just my gut says that's going to suck, or oh, that sounds really good. And 9 out of 10 times, I'm right. So Jumanji is one of those where I was wrong. Because when I heard them, I seriously, I love the original Robin Williams Jumanji. I thought, it was really, really fun. It just had a great vibe to it. And I couldn't imagine how they would reboot that. And with this cast, I thought, oh, now you're really reaching, I don't understand how this is going to work. God love you, Dwayne Johnson, but, put Dwayne Johnson, Jack Black, and Kevin Hart in a movie. Those guys are going to compete against each other. I don't see how they share the screen weight. Karen Gillan, she's just there to kind of she's the token female, right? That was my gut. I was so wrong. That first Jumanji was so much fun, and you know what? This one is pretty much in the same ballpark. It's just really fun.
This movie was so goofy to me, and it did this thing, and I found out what a flaming hypocrite I am. This is how I'm Tim is a hypocrite. So I'm watching this movie, and you got these people who are switching bodies and whatnot, right? And you have this moment where you end up with Jack Black doing Kevin Hart, right? So the Kevin Hart character is in Jack Black's body, this whole thing. Yeah, so you got Jack Black, who in the previous movie had been this sort of like Valley Girl. He was inhabited by the body of the little Valley Girl. Yeah. So you had Jack Black walking around that movie doing this Valley Girl thing. It was absolutely hysterical. I loved it, right? Didn't have any problem with that. That's me, right? Yep. Now in this movie, Kevin Hart ends up in Jack Black's body. So Jack Black is more or less walking around doing this brother. Yeah. And I'm watching this movie. It's hysterical. It's so fucking funny. And then I'm thinking to myself, hey, wait a minute. I don't know if I'm okay with that white dude doing that. I had no problem at all with Jack Black doing that Valley Girl. And then somehow, I mean, we know how, Danny DeVito ends up in Dwayne Johnson's body. So Danny DeVito is the little Jewish, nebbishy Jewish father of the kid, of the kid from the other movie who gets lost in Jumanji. So now you got Dwayne Johnson doing this expert imitation of Danny DeVito doing a little nebbishy, what can I hear? And it's hysterical. It's funny. And I thought to myself, I am just the biggest hypocrite in the world. I really need to get the hell over myself. Well, I really do.
This is, look, Jake Kasdan co-wrote this and directed it. Scott Rosenberg also co-wrote it. These guys, they know what they're doing. These are no slouches, and it is really fun. And I envy the actors because you can tell how much they enjoy being able to just pretend to be all these different characters. I mean, they really do get to stretch in ways. It's not like, oh, we did Jumanji before, we're going to come back and do the same character. No, it's like a whole new movie.
Oh yeah,
for the actors.
Everybody's doing it. Everybody. Danny DeVito, not Danny DeVito. Danny Glover in the movie, also hysterical. I must admit. So to me, this movie just as much fun as the first remake. So you got two.
I agree.
Who'd have thought you could get two out of the Jumanji franchise?
Totally true.
Yeah, man, what are you going to do? There they are. I got this one called Come to Daddy. So this is Elijah Wood in a fairly interesting, odd little sort of Irish-Canadian movie. It calls itself a sort of comedy horror thriller, but it's not really. It's just no horror in the movie at all. It's definitely a thriller. It has way more in common with something like, a Sexy Beast, or even go back to like a Joe Losey film like The Servant or something like that.
Oh, nice.
Sort of an extremely uncomfortable sort of thing going on. Well, you have this young man, he's been having some issues. He's an alcoholic and having some problems. And he ends up getting a note from his estranged father, who lives out in the middle of the woods in this cabin. So he figures, what the hell, I'll go out there and hang out with my dad. Maybe I can connect with my dad. And he goes out there. And his father is this really weird dude who drinks a lot, and it's extremely inappropriate. And the movie gets very, very, very uncomfortable real quick, and it gets ridiculously violent. But it all sort of comes together and works when you figure out what's going on. I mean, it really has a sort of peck and paw kind of vibe to it. I dug the hell out of it. Any special features coming on that DVD, man?
None whatsoever. There's absolutely nothing on here. There's a digital copy, and that's it. Now, you know what? It is a weird film. We talked about the Richard Stanley Nick Cage thing.
Oh yeah.
There's some common DNA here. I got to be honest. I think there's some common DNA with those two films. It doesn't go that far off the edge, but it goes.
Yeah, that weird color space. Whatever the hell that movie was.
Yeah.
From a couple of years ago. This movie called Bennett's War. This is an interesting sort of thing. I enjoyed this movie. I rather like this movie. It's about a soldier who survives a sort of IED explosion overseas and comes back home and is trying to put his life back together. And his legs are broken, his back is broken, and he sort of decides to start trying to do motocross, because motocross requires a lot of physical strength. So it's a way to sort of retrain his body. And he gets involved with some interesting people, and he rebuilds his life. So I like this movie. It's a perfectly legit little PG-13 walk the road movie. Now, I read some comments that came along with this movie that sort of disturbed me a little bit. I don't really know where those comments were coming from. I'm not even sure I want to pass them along. But if you just look at this movie straightforward for what it is, that's all it is. Yeah. It's just a movie about a soldier who gets hurt in war and comes home and tries to figure out a way to get himself back, to being the guy that he was before, and that's all. And the nasty little marks in the comments box, I don't need those. Anything come with that, man? It's a tight little movie, too.
No, there is nothing on it, but I'll tell you what I like about this movie. I like Trace Adkins.
Yeah, Trace is in it. Yeah.
Trace Adkins is in it, plays the dad. And, here's the thing about Trace Adkins. Trace Adkins has one of those voices that you just absolutely love. It's one of those deep, resonant country voices, and it just puts you at ease. There's something authoritative about it. It's like, who else? Who else has one of those voices? Oh, Sam,
which Sam?
Sam,
Sam, the cowboy Sam, mustache Sam.
Yeah, cowboy Sam.
I almost said Warston, but not him.
Yeah. So,
the other Sam.
So I was going to move on to Hidden Life, which was in the mix for awards season last year. Got great reviews coming out of Cannes, and then just disappeared during our award season voting.
Yeah,
Terrence Malick.
Yeah.
Now, why do you think that is? What did you think of the film, and why do you think it just kind of vanished during award season?
I know why it vanished during the awards season. The talk about the film was this is more Terrence Malick doing what Terrence Malick does. I don't understand why that's a critic. They said it like it was a bad thing. Like what's wrong with that?
Yeah.
Yes, it is very much in the mode of a Terrence Malick film. Now it's about an actual historical figure. So Terrence is sort of wrapped by the events that actually happened. It has to do with this conscientious objector who refused to fight for the Nazis during the war. Yeah. He's an Austrian named Franz. How do you say his last name, Wade?
Oh boy,
Jagersteiner.
I'm gonna something. I'm not gonna be able to pronounce it correctly. I didn't even pay attention to it in the movie, but yeah.
It's a very interesting historical figure during this historical period. I found it absolutely captivating. It is most certainly captured cinematically in the style of Terrence Malick films. Yeah. I think that's a good thing, not a bad thing, and I don't understand why when folks were saying it, they were saying it like it was a bad thing.
I agree. No, I think it's a really, really strong film. I think it's a little too long, and that's not something I usually say about Terrence Malick movies. Like, when I hear that Terrence Malick just recut his 2.5-hour movie to be 3 hours, I'm the guy that jumps up and down on my bed, like it's Christmas morning. But you and I at one point, we went and saw like 3 or 4 Terrence Malick movies in a row, starting with Tree of Life and Knight of Cups. And I remember, we were hitting all those same screenings, and I loved all of those. I even loved the one at at South by Southwest that he shot in Austin with Ryan Gosling. I even enjoyed that one, which everybody else hated. But
that would bug me a little bit, but that's okay.
This is beautiful. If this had been, I think, just 20 minutes shorter, it would have been a better film, and it would have been really in the awards mix. But I think it's repetitive in places where it just may have lost a few people. But it is a powerful story, and it's a worthwhile film to see. It is unfortunately, and it's nearly 3 hours long. You know, if it were about 2.5, I think that'd be kind of a sweet spot. It's got a digital code for movies anywhere, and that's all it's got. Unfortunately, it's really got not much else. Not much room on the disc for anything else. But you can at least add it to Movies Anywhere, which is nice.
Richard, it seemed like the studio kind of just let it float out there too. They didn't sort of, it seemed like they caved in to the sort of critical voices that sort of teamed up against the movie rather than pushing it out there anyway. So that was kind of disappointing by me anyway.
Richard Jewell, Tim.
Yeah, Richard Jewell. Now, there, again, Clint Eastwood film, which, at the beginning of the season, this past awards season, everyone was talking about Richard Jewell and perhaps another, but it became fairly clear fairly early on that certainly the film itself and Clint were not going to be getting a whole lot of love. Now, Sam Rockwell and Kathy Bates did get some recognition for some extraordinary performances in the movie.
And Sam Rockwell is so good.
Hauser, who played Richard Jewell in the movie, was also quite good.
Oh, he's amazing.
So in terms of these performances, we had some real. Now, there's some issues with this movie. Things to do with the way Clint told that story. Things to do with things that he said and intimated that historical characters did that he had no way.
The Olivia Wilde character in particular,
and I don't even know if I want to put it out there. What it is.
So it's not really
so I think that might have had something to do with this movie. But performances, storytelling. Yes, this is a perfectly well-told story about Richard Jewell, who's a historical character at the Atlanta Olympics. Yeah. What was that, 98? Was that 98?
Yeah, I think it was.
Something like that. You found a bomb, incredibly saved some people's lives. 96. Incredibly saved some people's lives, and then was excoriated by the FBI and the press, and all kinds of things happened. But Clint did do that thing in this movie, and I got to tell you, I take exception to what he did in this movie.
Yeah, and it's a screenwriting choice, and I'm he could have objected to it and asked it to be rewritten, but nonetheless, it is a polished film. I think ultimately the reason it didn't quite fly is because there's only so much dramatic mileage you can get out of the idea of a guy who's wrongly accused, and I don't think the stakes are high enough for the drama to really, really take flight. But that said, it's a super polished movie, and man, Hauser is really good. If you ever saw the real Richard Jewell on any of those talk shows, spit an image. Absolutely spit an image.
Yeah.
The Grudge.
Yeah, interesting, Richard Jewell. I mean, because, we think about... I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
Oh, no, go ahead. Finish up.
I was going to say, interesting thing about Richard Jewell, the actual Richard Jewell. Yeah. Richard had an interesting life after all of this.
Yeah.
Richard had a television show. He was on Saturday Night Live. I mean, you would think that, he was destroyed by all of this. No, it was kind of the opposite. He had a nice little run, and he ultimately achieved his lifelong goal of becoming a police officer.
Yeah. He died young. He died young. He had health problems.
Well, but the guy weighed 400 pounds.
Yeah, but yeah. So I was going to say The Grudge. We have another remake of The Grudge. They're trying to reboot The Grudge, the untold chapter. There's no untold chapter of The Grudge. Stop it. It's the same thing that we've seen 50 times. You're just trying to get more mileage out of the same old tired idea, and it's not very interesting. The Japanese original remains the best. The American remake is okay. This is totally unnecessary, but it's got 40 minutes of special features, including an alternate ending. Get out of there, an alternate ending. It's The Grudge. Come on, stop it.
They all end the same.
They all end the same. Gosh darn it, seriously. I mean, it's The Grudge. What kind of, who at this point is going to go, gee, I wonder how this Grudge ends? Come on, stop it. Just be normal. Intrigo, Death of an Author, with Ben Kingsley and Benno Furman. I really love Benno Furman. I think he's a great actor. Ben Kingsley will literally do absolutely anything these days. It's very, very strange. But this is based on a novel by a Scandinavian author named Håkon Nesser, of whom I have never heard. And it's basically about somebody trying to stage the perfect murder. And with a few interesting little thrillery twists in there, at which point you begin to realize that this is just trying to fold Vertigo back on itself one or two or three times too often. But somehow Ben Kingsley and his older age goatee just have such a sinister quality to them that sometimes the goatee is doing more acting than Ben Kingsley these days.
Yeah, that happens occasionally. Yeah. It's kind of funny. This movie called Abigail, sort of Russian English film, this fantasy thing. I really, really dug this film. at the end of the day, it's a film about a girl looking for a father, but it's put into this sort of interesting context. So there's this small town where years ago there was this mysterious disease that supposedly wiped out everybody. Her father was one of the ones who was taken sick and had to be taken away. But she goes back and decides she's going to go look for her dad, and what she finds out is that there's a lot of magic in that town where those people come from. I love these kind of movies, and I love anything that has a girl looking for her daddy, or daddy looking for his daughter, or that kind of stuff. It just works for me. This one's really, really good. Plus, wicked ass. The Russians and their special effects. Eddie Marsan in the movie, by the way. The Russians and their special effects, they always just seem to be slightly ahead of the curve.
Right?
With that stuff. I don't know what that is, but they just always are.
I don't know what it is, too. It's cold. They spend a lot of time indoors. In fact, that's what, just to diverge for a second, it's funny because everybody's talking about why does Russia have so few coronavirus, things? Well, they're not testing, or Putin's behind. No, let me tell you something. I don't know. I don't know about the testing. I don't know how many, if they're lying or if they don't really have them or if they figured it out or Putin is a magician and got out in front of it. Who knows? I don't know. But I will tell you this, that the concept of social distancing, if you say that to a Russian, their answer will be, so, in other words, winter. Because, they just don't go out.
Yes, they don't even go near each other when they're in.
They don't know. Why? Why do that?
They get drunk and stay the hell away from each other.
It's something to do with the vodka. Wouldn't that be funny if it turned out that vodka actually killed the coronavirus?
I would love that.
Wouldn't that be funny?
So for me,
we are giving away 4 Abigails. So you're all clustered up at home. Hey, hit us at gods@digigods.com or gods@cinegods.com with Abigail in the subject line and your name and mailing address in the body. And 4 lucky people will be randomly chosen to receive a copy of Abigail. Please get it to us by April 1st, by April Fools. And on April 1st, we will pick 4 people at random, and we'll let you know that day. We got nothing else to do. There won't be a delay. Sometimes there's a delay in letting people know about a day or two. But no delay this time. If we pick you on April 1st, if we get it by the end of March, make sure it's dated no later than March 31st. On April 1st, we'll pick a lucky person and 4 lucky people and send you a copy of Abigail on Blu-ray. From Wellgo, and what a fun concept it is. I'm going to hit a few 4Ks here real quickly.
Okay.
Not a ton of 4Ks this week, but the obvious one that's a big deal is 1917, which for about a minute and a half was more longer than that, about 5 minutes, was considered the odds-on front runner and the inevitable winner of Best Picture because it won the DGA and the PGA awards, overlooking the fact that Parasite won the actors and the writers, who have more sway than producers and directors.
There are literally more of them.
A lot more of them. But you know what? 1917 is a good film. And Sam Mendes, who's not been, in the Oscar mix for 20 years, man.
American Beauty, maybe?
American Beauty, that was it. And he came on with a gangbusters with American Beauty and won everything. And then he just kind of disappeared and, wound up making a few James Bond movies. And now he's back. And 1917 is based on a family story that was handed on to him. And it is a very, very good film. The only thing is, it's the gimmick, the continuous camera shot gimmick. It's not a continuous shot. It's stitched together. It's an illusion. Yeah. I don't know why they felt they needed to do it. I didn't think that it really was essential to the storytelling. It's good in pieces, I think, and you can tell me what you think of it. I don't think we've really talked too much about it. I think the continuous camera work in individual scenes lets the actors really evolve a performance that otherwise might not happen if it was all chopped up. But I don't think the individual scenes needed to sort of have the illusion of one camera shot moving between them. Nonetheless, the story of these 2 guys on a mission to save an entire battalion's lives with a message during World War I is really sharp, and it's the first World War I story to really have a go at Best Picture since Lawrence of Arabia in 1962. So Best Cinematography, Roger Deakins won his second Academy Award for this. It really is gorgeous, and in 4K, it's just absolutely superb. I think it looks better in 4K than it was when I saw it projected, and I'll tell you why. Because I saw it projected in 2K. Most projection is 2K. Deakins' photography I hate to say it, comes through better in the home environment than in the theater. In this case, at least, it is really, really sensational. So, despite the continuous camera shot thing, everything else about it is really, really impressive. It's got a bunch of featurettes on it. One about the score, which is also very, very good, and a little bit of historical backdrop as well. So, 1917, terrific. Tim, any thoughts on 1917?
Well, I can tell you, it's so well done in terms of performances. You just and every now and again a very familiar face will pop up, a Mark Strong or just somebody like that, but it's so well done in terms of its two main leads who we are mostly with. That gimmick, for lack of a better word, didn't bug me. Yeah. I can promise you that gimmick would have bugged me if the film itself hadn't been so strong, just in terms of performances and in the way it's sort of laid out. Yeah. So, but it's a funny thing. I mean, if I'm a producer of this film, and they tell me they want to do it this way, I would have been the voice in the room against it.
I agree.
I'd have been saying, no, guys, this is a strong movie. Let's just make the movie.
And that was in the script too.
So much for what I think.
That was in the script too. Apparently, reading the script, one of the early stage direction bits in the script is this whole movie will be shot as if it's one camera move, which is weird to put in a script, but there it was.
Well, I look at the vision in somebody's head, and whatever. I imagine they're all happy about it. Batman versus Teenage
Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yeah,
Ninja Turtles. I got to tell you, I thoroughly love this feature-length animation, dude.
Yeah,
which is just a wicked-ass concept. How do you get all these people together? You got Warner Brothers, you got DC,
dude.
You got I mean, it's like everybody.
But this is the new take on the Turtles, right? Like the Turtles. In our original generation were kind of cute and muscular and wisecracky, and the Turtles, as of like about 2 years ago, they sort of rebooted them as tough and badass, like
superheroes like all the other superheroes.
Yeah, they're muscular, and they've got they're very Marvel, right? They have that Jack Kirby attitude, like Thing in the Fantastic Four. They're like 4 different versions of Thing. And I think that lends itself to merging with Batman. This seems like what they used to do. Remember the Scooby-Doos? Well, they do it all the time now, but when it was Scooby-Doo teaming up with Abbott and Costello and teaming up with the Harlem Globetrotters, the Three Stooges, and Batman and Robin, it was ridiculous every week. It was like, what? What world does this take place in?
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. You got like cool bad guys here. You got Harley Quinn. You got Shredder from out of the Mutant Turtles universe. You got Ra's al Ghul out of the DC, out of the Batman universe. So you got a lot of familiar characters from all of these different universes.
And Batgirl.
And Batgirl. Yeah, and Batgirl. So I thoroughly enjoyed that. Anything on that, by the way?
You know what? There's a just featurette stuff, basically, and then a sneak preview of Batman Hush, which looks pretty good as well. But the animation is sensational. It's really sensational. And it is also sensational, and 4K is done beautifully for Spies in Disguise, which I didn't particularly like as a movie, but I like Will Smith and Tom Holland doing the voice work. Oddly enough, Tom Holland's character here is animated almost exactly the same as it is in that new Pixar film.
Yeah,
and I'm like, this feels oddly crossover somehow. But you know what? I mean, it's this is from the same team, the same animation team that did Ice Age and Rio. And Will Smith is very cool as kind of a James Bondy figure, and Tom Holland is sort of his nerdy science sidekick. It's like if he teamed up with a young Q, sort of the way to do it. I thought it was, relatively fun, but the actors seem to be having so much fun that you just sort of sign on for it.
Yeah, look, it was okay. Like Ben Mendelsohn, the bad guy voice, I thoroughly loved him, and a few other folks you might not expect, Mark Ronson and whatnot. It was an okay movie. I was hoping for something a little sharper, a little bit better, but that's okay. That's got to be packed full of all kinds.
It's got obviously all the 4K stuff, and the HDR is just fantastic. But as far as regular extras, those are only on the Blu-ray, and there's a thing called Super Secret Spy Mode, which is a bit of a gimmick, not really that interesting. It's got gallery stuff and featurettes and some music videos. Fair amount of stuff, nothing really deep, nothing really, rich, and it doesn't really get in depth into anything. I got a few, I'm going to skip the I'm going to skip the indie stuff. Let's talk about some of the docs. People might really get into some docs while they're sitting around all cooped up. So I want to talk about first May 15th in Paris, which is a Blu-ray from Barbara DeFina, the producer of many Martin Scorsese things. This is a Blu-ray of a 10-minute long movie. I know you're thinking, why the hell am I going to get a Blu-ray of a movie that's 10 minutes long? That doesn't make any sense. Why don't I just watch it on YouTube or something? You know what? Just get it so you have it, so you can watch it, because it's really, really good. It's a really good 10-minute Blu-ray. It essentially tells the story of May 15th in 1848, which is when the first real French Republic came to be, when people just got fed up. They'd had the revolution 60 some odd years earlier, 70 some odd years earlier, and they want to finally have a democracy. They finally want to vote. And that's how long it took in France, believe it or not. It took until 1848. And what transpired at that time in overthrowing Napoleon is really, really fascinating, and it's worth the 10-minute watch. It really is. It's an excellent 10-minute film. The others here, let's see. Cunningham.
Cunningham, dude.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I thoroughly enjoyed this film.
It's great, right?
About Merce Cunningham, of course. Because not only does the film sort of cover his life and his work, which is really extremely sort of complicated and over several different movements of his life, it explores his work with several other extremely famous people, including John Cage, his partner Robert Rauschenberg, and sort of explores what he was doing when. It's really just a wonderful story, a wonderful documentary, full of absolutely fabulous footage of various different productions of his dances over the course of many years. And sometimes what they show is how he would change those dances, those performances, depending on when we are in his life. So it's just 3 decades of Merce Cunningham's work from about 1942 up to about 1972.
It's
fantastic.
Really good. It is really good. Got 2 on the Dalai Lama here, who has not been heard from in the coronavirus thing, but I'm sure he'll have something to say at some point. One is Philip Glass. These are both from Alive Mind, distributed by Kino. The first is The Last Dalai Lama, ? Has a score by Philip Glass and a Buddhist Lama. They work together on it. And it's a little bit of a sensational title, but it does sort of address whether or not the Dalai Lama living in exile will have a successor, which is an interesting question. There's a certain procedure and thing that goes for selecting the Dalai Lama, and can that happen?
And for that matter, who selects the Dalai Lama? Because the Chinese government has decided that they're going to select the Dalai Lama.
Yeah, that's not going to go over very well. They also pick Catholic priests. The Pope doesn't get to pick the people who are Catholic priests in China. It's a bit weird. They really need to re-examine their, nobody's really buying that. And then Compassion in Exile, the story of the 14th Dalai Lama, is basically his, it is his story, but it's not done. It's like through interview. He sort of tells his own story. And interestingly, it's, there's a lot of stuff here that didn't make it into either of those movies, the Scorsese-directed Kundun or 7 Years in Tibet with Brad Pitt, which both came out around the same time. There's a lot of new material here. If you're really only going on dramatic movies to tell you about the Dalai Lama, you're missing a lot. Really interesting guy. So there are those, and then there's Stuff.
This Stuffed documentary.
I don't know if I like this.
Which is about taxidermy.
And I don't really have a problem with taxidermy. It's just at a certain point, it gets weird.
Yeah, particularly when you're as passionate as these people who consider themselves to be artists.
Yeah.
And they stuff anything that was once alive, and I suppose one can call is this an art form? I don't know if this is an art form. This film is captivating and interesting, but more because of the freakish, weird people who are in it than the other stuff. That's the thing.
I was surprised, whenever I think about taxidermy, I always picture some guy in a cabin in Wyoming or North Dakota, like mounting moose heads or something, right? It's not something I imagined. There's a taxidermy place here in L.A. which is all women working at it. What?
Yeah.
Who are your clients? I go to a lot of homes. I don't see like bears and, flamingos mounted in the corner.
It just seems like a thing, an occupation, a hobby of the last century.
Yeah.
If not the century before that.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. This is just, I can't imagine there are a whole bunch of 15-year-olds who are in the taxidermy club.
I was thinking Arthur when Dudley Moore is meeting his fiance's dad, and there's that mounted moose head. He says, "Where's the rest of this moose? Forget about the moose for now."
Oh my God!
Yeah. So also a very acclaimed documentary is Lifeline. Lifeline, Clyfford Still. That's Clyfford spelled C-L-Y and 2 F's. This is by a filmmaker named Dennis Scholl. And this is basically about an artist. I'm not familiar with Clyfford Still, at least I wasn't before watching this. Clyfford Still is a very interesting artist. It's in the Jackson Pollocky vein of sort of abstract design, and he's not painting pictures of things and people. He's sort of creating very impressionistic color schemes and design schemes and shape schemes, and it's yet a really interesting life, a very different life from that of Jackson Pollock, who, as we know from that movie, was a pretty conflicted and volatile figure. But this is a good doc. So Lifeline, Clyfford Still, Clyfford. Good little doc from Kino Lorber. All right, let's jump into some classic stuff. We got great Criterions this week. 3 Criterions in particular: classic Hollywood, foreign language, and then newer Hollywood. First off, we had a whole bunch of classic Spike Lees from Kino a few weeks ago, and now Criterion has shocked the world, and they've given a Criterion treatment to Bamboozled, which I think might be the last Spike Lee film anybody would have expected to wind up on Criterion. I find it fascinating.
I gotta tell you, Bamboozled took a pretty good beat down. I think it was a 1997 film or so, if I'm not mistaken.
It's 2000.
Late 70s anyway.
2000.
Late 90s. I'm sorry, late 90s. Maybe 2000.
It was 2000. It's right.
Oh
2000.
yeah, so a little bit later.
And it's a long movie.
I gotta tell you, I deeply appreciated that film at the time. I kind of got what Spike was talking about with respect to the media, and the way the media viewed. Now, a few years later, Dave Chappelle, maybe a decade later, Chappelle quit the Chappelle Show and had that whole sort of thing that he did, and I thought to myself, this is Bamboozled. That whole Dave Chappelle moment, that whole thing of where are you laughing with me or at me that he was going through was the exact narrative of what was going on in that movie Bamboozled back in the year 2000, which I deeply appreciated.
I mean, the story is basically Damon Wayans plays a guy who wants to bring back blackface for a TV show. And it's such an outrageous idea for a movie that you wonder, like, how can Spike even make this work? And yet it's unlike almost any of his other movies in the sense that it has an almost Dr. Strangelove kind of sensibility to it. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, for one thing, you have Damon Wayans doing this absolutely bizarre sort of, what is it, a dialect or an accent or whatever the hell it is that he's doing. It's very, very particular. Jada Pinkett at the time. Also, they're all engaged in these sort of almost Eugene Ionesco sort of characters. As we play out this stuff. Xavier Glover, the wonderful tap dancer.
Paul Mooney's in it.
Great Paul Mooney. And cork face and all kinds of issues around race and performance.
I'm gonna recommend too that everybody listen to the commentary on here, because there was a commentary recorded in 2001 with Spike Lee, which is terrific. I mean, if there are any questions, he answers them, and it's really, really interesting. There's also a conversation with film programmer Ashley Clark, new interviews with Savion Glover and Tommy Davidson and Ruth Carter, who did the costumes. I mean, tons of stuff on here that gets into the meat of what the movie's about, and it's a movie that's about so much that it really, really does warrant that covering all those bases.
Well, fans of Network, so if you're a fan of Network,
they're kind of sister films.
Seen this, you're going to understand what's going on in Bamboozled.
They're sister films. They're totally sister films. Then The Cranes Are Flying from 1957 is an absolutely unbelievable movie. This is a phenomenal film made in what was then the Soviet Union. Russian film, Russian director Mikhail Kalatozov. This is the only Soviet film that actually won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival in 1958. And that's quite a thing because, of course, everybody knows what was going on for artists at the time, and there was no artistic freedom and whatnot. So the fact that this was even made is kind of a miracle. Now, it's not obviously critical of the Soviet regime, but it tells an extraordinary story, which is of lovers separated by World War II. And so, obviously, the government, at the time, the Soviet government must have thought, oh, great, it's about, the cost of World War II. But it isn't really. It gets into all kinds of other social issues that obviously they use that narrative to mask. It is a beautiful, powerful film, incredibly well photographed. The Cranes Are Flying, really amazing movie. Has an audio interview with the director from 1961, a new interview with Ian Christie, who talks about why this is such a landmark in Soviet cinema. Really important to watch that. And then there's a TV program from 2008, and then also a 2009 documentary that talks about the relationship that Kalatozov had with the Soviet government. And Kalatozov is ethnically Georgian. So, that obviously has more meaning now that we're very much aware of Georgia. And then from 1945, Criterion's Leave Her to Heaven, a classic golden era.
Joe Swirling screenplay.
Yes, Joe Swirling screenplay based on a novel by Ben Ames Williams, directed by John Stahl. This is an absolutely sensational film. This is just
It's basically Fatal Attraction 35 years earlier or something like that.
Yep. Produced by Daryl Zanuck, who, of course, had gone on to 20th Century Fox. He had formed 20th Century Pictures and then merged with Fox Film Corporation after leaving Warner Brothers. And it's got, Gene Tierney, Cornel Wilde, Gene Crane, Vincent Price. Great cast. But yeah, this is kind of like the original great femme fatale movie. Gene Tierney just eats it up, man. She just kills it.
Really she's an obsessive wife after she marries this guy there, and she becomes very passionate. They're in love, but she's like really in love.
Oh no, she's like she's in love. This is like it's unhinged. Anyway, there's a new interview here with Imogen Sarah Smith, a film critic, and an essay by Megan Abbott, the novelist. Not much by way of extras, but doesn't need to. It's a really, really good film. Warner Archive Collection has got 3 that are also really, really good. The more recent one is Gregory Peck and Eva Marie Saint in The Stalking Moon, which is a pretty decent Western. It's weird to me that this was rated G at the time. This is from 1969, right at the beginning of the rating system. I don't think this would be rated G today. To be honest.
No.
Eva Marie Saint was basically, she was captured by the Apaches, and
a half-breed son. Not rated G.
Gregory Peck's got to, escort her. Anyway, Alan Pakula, who unfortunately passed away, in the prime of his life, but who would go on to do All the President's Men and a lot of other fine movies, was the producer of this, and Robert Mulligan of The Miracle Worker and many other fine films directed. So you have 2 really great character figures involved in this, and I think it's a really powerful Western. But man, it is not G-rated. It's got all kinds of. This would be a PG-13 easy.
What's the John Ford film? Shades of with
The Searchers.
Yeah. Shades of that. Not as good as that, but shades of that.
Yeah.
And certainly some great performances in it. And Robert Forster, by the way.
Yeah.
In the movie. We lost Robert, I don't know, about a year ago or something like that. But, young Robert Forster, if you want to see him.
All right. Beau Brummell is an MGM film from 1954. Nice splashy color. It's got Stuart Granger in the lead. Great supporting performances by Robert Morley. Peter Ustinov is very, very funny. Elizabeth Taylor. So Beau Brummell is a military guy, and the Prince of Wales, played by Peter Ustinov, is the designer of his regiment's uniform, and there's a disagreement about it, and it winds up bringing these 2 guys together and into a very strange unusual relationship with Elizabeth Taylor as a noblewoman, and this is still a decade before Tom Jones, but it has shades of it. It's a period epic, but it's kind of a little bit askew. It's a very unusual film, directed by Curtis Bernhardt, a director I'm not terribly familiar with. But the way that it factors into the history of the royal family is quite interesting. So Beau Brummell, kind of a blast from the past there. And then also on Blu-ray with 3D is Kiss Me Kate, which I keep forgetting was a 3D movie originally. Yeah. This has been remastered in Blu-ray 3D, which is still not, it's not exactly a thing anymore, but they went and did it. And for those who don't know, Howard Keel was not always a soap opera guy. He became that as an older man. He was a musical lead originally. And Kiss Me Kate it was part of the Turner Library, and then Warner Brothers got a hold of it, and it was made in 1953, also just glowingly colorful and whatnot. But basically, Kiss Me Kate is The Taming of the Shrew done as a musical. That's it. It's Shakespeare's Taming of the Shrew done as a big, splashy Hollywood full-color musical. And Howard Keel and Katherine Grayson and Ann Miller and Keenan Wynn and James Whitmore. Bobby Van, of all people, is in this thing. A young Bobby Van. It's really a lot of fun. It's Cole Porter music. It's just a whole lot of fun. And George Sidney directed it, and the fact that it's 3D is kind of fun, actually. I have to admit.
Wicked.
All right.
I got this one from Arrow.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to me because this is a 1995 film, and I remember doing the junket for this film. Brendan Fraser, Ashley Judd, Viggo Mortensen. So I did the junket for this film.
Yep.
Back in 1995. It's called The Passion of Darkly. So this is this very weird little movie about this guy named Darkly. He's very religious. He's wandering around the middle of the woods. He gets picked up by this other guy and taken to the home of this couple, played by Viggo Mortensen and Ashley Judd. And Viggo Mortensen is away in the woods, and Ashley Judd, who is a nurse, sort of nurses him back to health. He falls in love with her. Viggo Mortensen's character comes back. And then you sort of figure out the rest of the movie from there. And I remember this being a really bizarre, weird little movie. And talking to Viggo, this is 1995, so this is before these guys really done a whole lot of big stuff. It might have been after Encino Man for Brendan Fraser, but it was certainly before Viggo had his big break. And Ashley Judd had been wandering around doing this and that, but she hadn't done Kiss the Spider or any of those big Morgan Freeman adaptations that she did with him. And I thought this was a pretty neat movie, and we had a nice conversation. Interesting. Lauren Dean in the film, Grace Zabriskie in the movie. It's one of those odd sort of films from the 90s that you could probably only make back in the 90s. You could not even make this movie for streaming video today. The Passion of Darkly, 1995, from Arrow.
Very cool. I want to hit a few TV things real fast here. Warner Archive has done some wonderful TV stuff, and we're gonna start wrapping the show up here in a minute. But two from my childhood and yours, Tim. Yeah. We have from the Warner Archive people the complete Blu-ray collections of the Jetsons and Shazam, the complete live-action series.
That's so wonderful.
I cannot tell you how happy I am to have Shazam on Blu-ray. I love that show. The idea of just having being able to say a word and then being turned into a great big strapping dude. The movie recently was cute, but this is a whole different thing because Shazam actually has this whole, it's a pantheon of gods whose names are represented by the acronym Shazam. That was invented for the show, and traveling around in that RV with that old dude. I just thought it was a cool show every week.
Well, Shazam was the thing that a boy named Billy Batson said to turn himself into Captain Marvel.
Yeah, who can't be called Captain Marvel anymore.
Because you could explain what the hell happened with the comic book.
Marvel sued DC.
It was a nightmare. But I got to tell you, that just always bugged the hell out of me. That these ended up as two different superheroes, I guess. Yeah. And now, of course, Captain Marvel, as we know her, is nobody has to say Shazam.
I know.
She's just Captain Marvel, and Shazam is just some goofy kid who turns into the guy.
Now, about the Jetsons, this is what blows me away. Did you ever realize there were only 24 episodes?
I don't think so. I would have thought that there were 5 or 6 seasons of the Jetsons. If you ask me,
like the Flintstones went on forever. I mean, there are just a ton of Flintstones episodes, but there are only 24 episodes of the Jetsons. And that's just amazing to me. But wow, this looks really good in Blu-ray. Warner Brothers did a sensational job here. I mean, it's bait. Look, we all know it's the Flintstones, in reverse. The Flintstones are Stone Age, Jetsons are in the future. You don't ever see the actual surface of the Earth at any point in the Jetsons. Everything
No.
you never do. Everything is suspended up in the air somewhere. I never really understood why. Like, is the Earth just contaminated? Is it unwalkable? No, you just fly around in little saucers and go from one suspended building to another. It's hysterical.
Yeah, landing on those platforms and flying in space.
That's it.
Packs and all that kind of stuff. That's so amazing.
It's a fun show. It's still a really, really fun show. And lots of great extras on here. There's commentary on 2 episodes by the actress Janet Waldo, who was the voice of Judy Jetson, which is really, really fun. A lot of insight there. And then there's a...
I had a ridiculous crush on Judy Jetson. the animated teenage
Isn't that
girl.
weird? I did too.
So
you know what it was? It's the hair.
Yeah.
It was the hair. It was just sexy hair. And then there's some featurettes and tribute to Rosie, the robotic maid. And then the last few here, this is all DC stuff. So, and it's all kind of in the same vein. You got the complete series of Teen Titans. They wrapped all that up in a complete series Blu-ray, which is really nice and tight. It's not my favorite show, but it has a lot of great special features on it, on the making of the show, the voices, just the villains and whatnot. And it's a nice tight little thing. Looks great on Blu-ray. Then connected to that, there is also Young Justice Outsiders Season 3. Which is a little more serious. It's a little more grown up. There are 4 discs here in this season, and some interesting storylines here that dovetail with some things that are in the comics in a much more interesting way. Nightwing and Superboy and Miss Martian, Aqualad. So this is a little bit more of a serious approach to the same concept. And if you want it live action, well, then there's the second season of Titans, which. I gotta tell you, man, I'm starting to like this show. I'm liking it certainly more than things like Batwoman. Yeah. This is not a bad show. This is pretty slick. It's not in the same universe it's not part of the Arrowverse per se, but I like what they're doing with it. I think it's really interesting. I like the take on Jason Todd's Robin and. Beast Boy, and there are some really interesting things that they do here with these young superheroes, and it's going into interesting places. So this is the second season, 13 episodes, and I recommend this. This has one special feature, which is a Jason Todd Fate by the Fans, where it gets into his DC Universe history based on the fan feedback, which I didn't even know was a thing, but that's very interesting. So. With that, Tim, I think we're done this week. There's a lot of stuff we didn't get to. I'm going to try to drill through it, and I'll send you lists and let you do whatever you can do remotely. We're obviously going to be doing this again next week, and who knows how many more weeks we're going to do it, but we're going to be there. We're going to do it. So send us emails. Tell us how you're doing. We'd love to hear everybody's coronavirus sequestration stories. And email us at gods@digigods.com or gods@cinegods.com. Any last thoughts, Tim?
Well, DVDs more important than ever. That became that's interesting, huh?
Yeah.
How suddenly a thing that you can put in your deck over there has become all the rage again. I've been going through the old DVD collection, breaking out stuff I haven't thought about in a long time. So there it is.
And with the load on the internet, people are asking. Some countries are even asking Netflix to lighten up the bandwidth a little bit, because the world is all quarantined and everybody's hitting the internet, and it's a traffic jam. The actual roads have no cars on them, but the internet is getting jammed up. So those DVDs, you're gonna get some use out of those. So anyway, all right, everybody. Have a great time. Stay safe. Follow the instructions of your local health authorities. That is the most important thing that I think anybody can do. A
Absolutely.
lot of people have been improvising, trying to invent their own quarantine rules. Don't do that. Just do what the local authorities ask you to do, and be a good neighbor. And
I
we'll
will
get
say
through
this. I will say this. It's just to make sure we keep it on media. Ventilators. A lot of talk about ventilators. I'm a big fan of MacGyver, as you know, Wade. MacGyver.
Yep.
Not this new MacGyver, this kid. Not that guy. No, MacGyver.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. And I just want to point out that at least 4 episodes per 30-episode season, MacGyver would build a ventilator out of a box of potato chips and a vacuum cleaner.
Well,
just want to point that out. Watch your episodes of MacGyver.
Awesome. All right. With that, we are done. We will see you guys next week. Have a good one.
I did on my own, alone again, naturally. To think that only yesterday I was cheerful, bright and gay, looking forward to what wouldn't do the role I was about to play. But as if to knock me down, reality came around, and without so much as a mere touch, cut me into little pieces, leaving me to doubt. Talk about God in His mercy, if He really does exist, why did He desert me in my hour of need? I truly am indeed alone again, naturally. It seems to me that there are more hearts